Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
First of May, good evening, it's 5:30. This is Update for Tuesday, 23rd of May, 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the island, background to that news and sport and business and Sea Watch and travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, the nurses are to be balloted over strike action. Public sector workers may vote on industrial action. The shipping and aircraft registers are dropping numbers. David Ashford says we need to talk about our energy self-sufficiency and are we safe from bird flu?
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Fast to my Christian Jones.
Fast to my. Closing statements in the retrial of a former Castletown man accused of murdering his wife's lover have been heard at Douglas Courthouse today. Ian Anthony Anderson is being tried for the murder of 60-year-old Neil Edward Roberts, who was found dead at his home on Queen Street in December 2013. Trade union Prospect have become the latest to announce their balloting members over whether to take industrial action. The Royal College of Nursing is also asking members if they want to go on strike following rejections to pay offers put forward by the government and Manx Care. And the Care Quality Commission has set out a number of reports after carrying out inspections at Noble's Hospital, dental surgeries and GP practices. Some of the issues identified are being escalated to the Department of Health and Social Care. In international news, a mother says she's absolutely devastated by the sentence of her daughter's killer, who evaded justice for more than 3 decades. David Boyd's been handed a life sentence with a minimum of 29 years for murdering 7-year-old Nikki Allen in 1992. Disgraced entertainer Rolf Harris has died at the age of 93 after suffering from neck cancer and what's been described as the frailties of old age. The paedophile served 3 years behind bars for a string of assaults, including on a childhood friend of his daughter. And international students who travel to the UK will no longer be able to bring family with them. Only specific circumstances will be taken into account as part of UK government efforts to bring immigration down. Those are the Update News headlines. Next to 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Goromaya, thank you, Christian. From the Ronaldsway Met Office, no wind warning in operation for the North Irish Sea. State of sea is smooth or slight. And the weather this evening, pleasant, dry, cloudy, some hazy evening sunshine and a moderate wind coming in from the northwest. We're down to 10 through the night. Into Jacrine, dry with variable cloud tomorrow, some sunshine after midday and a light to moderate northwesterly, up to 16 on Wednesday, overnight minimum 10 into Jardine, dry and sunny with a moderate to fresh northwesterly on Thursday, top temperatures 17 Celsius. Tides on the way out, low waters at 14 minutes to 9, sunset 28 minutes past 9, high tide overnight 6 minutes before 3 a.m, sunrise 2 minutes past 5, and the morning low water 27 minutes past 9.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Public sector workers in the Prospect Union are to be asked if they now want to take industrial action after overwhelmingly rejecting a government 5% pay offer. They'll decide what kind of action they want in what's termed as a consultative ballot. The story from John Moss.
Prospect's negotiating officer Mick Hewer says his members have had enough of meaningless discussions and claims they have endured endless attacks on their professional standing. The union, who've been in talks with government since the end of last year, say they've submitted a formal claim with supporting documentation. They don't say how much that claim is for, but they say they have rejected a 5% government pay offer. They say their claim reflects the consistent and significantly high inflation figures and cost of living crisis being experienced by their members. The aim, they say, is to restore years of real terms pay cuts and the erosion of beneficial terms and conditions. The union then goes on to say that there are staff shortages, low morale and a slow hemorrhage of staff leaving to seek better pay and terms and conditions positions elsewhere. Their pay, says this statement, does not reflect the knowledge and skills, dedication and commitment required to carry out their roles day in and day out, irrespective of the time of the year, weather or staff shortages. If Prospect members do decide to take some form of industrial action, they would join teaching union NASUWT with the nurses currently balloting for possible action.
Closing statements in the retrial of a former Castletown man, Ian Anthony Anderson, who's accused of murdering his wife's lover in 2013, have been heard at Douglas Courthouse. Max Radio's Tessa Hawley was there.
Addressing the jury, prosecutor Peter Wright QC said the death of Mr Roberts was as a result of the deliberate and intentional acts of Mr Anderson. It was no chance happening, he said. It was sustained, prolonged, unremitting and extremely violent. Mr Roberts, who was having an affair with Mr Anderson's wife, had been beaten by a man who had eventually reached the end of his tether, he said. Addressing the 55-year-old's emotionally unstable personality disorder, which he was diagnosed with in 2014, Mr Wright KC added, "Was this abnormality of mind a real cause of his conduct? We say not. The time has come to recognise what he did." Defending Mr Anderson, advocate Crispin Aylett KC told the court that the 60-year-old gardener had been intrusive. Mr Roberts came to take on the whole of Ian Anderson's life, he said, living in his house, sleeping with his wife and even claiming to own his dog. How provocative is that? Describing the situation as a love triangle which was more about money than love, he added that Mr Anderson accepted he wasn't acting in self-defence and that his actions cannot remotely be regarded as reasonable, even if he can't remember them. You have to ask yourself how or why could he have behaved in this way, he told the jury. Describing Mr Roberts as a master of mind games and someone who couldn't be trusted, he said he'd been having an affair with Alison, all the while telling Ian Anderson it's all in his head and he needs to see a doctor. The defendant did a terrible thing for which he's already been well and truly punished, Mr Aylett KC told the court. Asking the jury to find him guilty of manslaughter by reason of provocation or diminished responsibility, he added, "Bring his long nightmare to an end." Ian Anderson denies murder. The trial continues.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
Concerns over dropping numbers on the Isle of Man shipping and aircraft registers down to a number of reasons, the Enterprise Minister Tim Johnston, MHK, told the House of Keys. International competition, EU rules, Brexit and COVID amongst them. Tim Johnston was challenged by David Ashford, MHK, over the prices the Manx register charges.
The Department's decision to deregister all known Russian and Belarusian business was itself directly responsible for the loss of 22 aircraft and 49 yachts. In some cases, these can be pull factors from other registries that are offering incentives to attract ships to register there, as well as other local factors that may dictate an alternate choice of flag is more suitable for a vessel's area of operation. Many that have left the aircraft registry over the past few years have done so with the intention of being sold, as owners can no longer afford the expense associated with the ownership, maintenance and operation of a business jet, along with a growing negative narrative towards business aviation.
I accept that the international marketplace is challenging, but can the Minister explain why he thinks it is that other aircraft registries around the world, in some cases, are actually growing, whereas ours is declining? For instance, an example of pleasure vessels, where in the Isle of Man currently it's £555 per year to register a pleasure vessel. The equivalent size in Jersey is £420 for 10 years, Guernsey £350 for 10 years, UK £153 for 5 years.
Treasury Minister wants to speak.
Question, Dr. Allinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Minister for Enterprise agree with me that it is the quality of the ship and aircraft registries on the Isle of Man that drive that business? And so a rush to lower prices without keeping that quality and integrity of the registries would be a far bigger threat than the competitive environment that it's working in at the moment.
Recent outbreaks of bird flu in Yorkshire and Lincolnshire in the UK have highlighted the need for vigilance in all parts of the British Isles. The latest cases were found in wild seagulls and a poultry flock. Manx Government's Chief Veterinary Officer Amy Beckett says despite the fact there have been no recent cases on the island, we mustn't be lulled into a false sense of security.
We've been very lucky in the Isle of Man in the last couple of months that we've not had any more cases, but that doesn't mean to say that it's not still circulating in our wild bird populations and that we're not going to get new birds coming onto the island that have got bird flu. So we do still need to be vigilant. It does tend to be less in the summer months, so not quite such as risky as in the winter months, but we still do have to be vigilant that it is probably still circulating, and I'm afraid we are likely to get more cases in the future. So we are still asking people to ring us if they do find multiple dead wild birds. We'll then take a decision about whether they need collecting and or sampling, depending on the situation, the number of birds, the species of birds, etc. So, we'd recommend good biosecurity. Basically reducing access of people to the site, using suitable disinfectants, and basically trying to do everything they can to keep wild birds away from their kept birds. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to predict. We are seeing certainly less cases this summer than what we did last summer in GB so far, but it's very difficult to predict. I don't think it's something that's going to go away in the next couple of years, but whether the hope is that perhaps a vaccine or something else may come along that will help us, with the situation. So, some people may have seen on the news this week that it's been announced that there were 2 cases in poultry workers in England in the last few months. But these are people that are working very closely on infected farms, so the risk to the general public is still very low. But we are advised as a government that people don't pick up and touch dead or sick wild birds.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Motorship Ben McCree departed Heysham at 9 minutes past 2. She's safely into the inner harbour in Douglas on the link span and will be departing this evening at 7:45, arriving in Heysham at 11:30. Overnight departure 2:15, back to Douglas at 6 in the morning. The high-speed craft Manannan left Douglas at 10 to 3. She's in Liverpool now on the link span by the pierhead, and departing this evening from Liverpool at 7:15, back to Douglas at 10 tonight. Tomorrow morning's departures: 7 o'clock Manannan heads for Belfast, 8 o'clock Ben McCree heads to Heysham.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
And MHK is proposing all political members weigh in on a debate about the Isle of Man's need to be energy self-sufficient. David Ashford has proposed the discussion ahead of the next sitting of Tynwald in June. He says recent global events have highlighted the seriousness of energy security.
One of the things I think we need to do as an island is move to a more self-sustainable position. I do worry in the future that we may become more and more reliant on the UK for our energy, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. I actually think we're missing a trick here. I worry we are going to fall behind. The UK itself is actually an importer of electricity. It's quite a high importer. So actually, if we were to become reliant on the UK, we'd be importing from somewhere that's a high importer itself, so it doesn't have full energy security. And that really, really does concern me. I think as we move forward with the Climate Change Action Plan, although on the face of it, at the moment, sometimes it may seem cheaper to simply import, there's all the long-term costs and effect that can actually have a difference. We only have to look at the way electricity prices have gone because of the current global situation. I do believe the Council of Ministers wants to drive the climate change agenda forward, but I really, really do think we need to be looking to more electricity projects on Ireland and looking longer term, not just looking at what the price points are now, what the situation is likely to be in about 30, 40 years' time. There's always things that come up that you can never predict.
What's your position on Kroger conducting surveys and ultimately drilling for gas?
I think it should be seriously considered, but not just from the finance point of view. I don't think finance should be the overriding objective. I think what it can actually do for the island in terms of the provision of power, in the terms of actually making things a bit easier in terms of cost for those who use gas on the island. But I think just to say never to something like that, we've again got to look at what's best for the people of the island, and I do believe that the Grogan project should be explored.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 16 minutes before 6, Rolls-Royce is reportedly abandoning part of its carbon capture operation as part of a streamlining of the engineering group under its new boss. Rolls-Royce said they'll fulfil their UK government-funded programme to build and test a direct air capture prototype in Derby and expect to complete the work in 2024. Separate exploratory work to develop a DAC, a direct air capture product, has stopped. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. More bad news for Revolut, the British neobank and financial technology company. The FT reported today that Europe's biggest challenger bank is not only locked in a battle with its UK regulators over the banking licence, but with its shareholder, SoftBank, over its equity stake. British regulators want Revolut to convert its six-tier shareholding, a hangover of the firm's multiple funding rounds since 2015, into common stock, but SoftBank want twice the amount of shares to reflect its stake in the company. This comes only days after news broke that the UK was to turn down Revolut's application for a banking licence after 2.5 years of wrangling. In the past 3 months, Revolut has lost its UK banking chief exec and its group chief financial officer.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European stock markets closed lower. The dollar rose and oil rose, supported by a tighter market outlook. Gold prices extended losses. And the numbers now from Ramsey Crookall. At the close in London, the FTSE 100 down 0.1% at 7,772. The DAX in Frankfurt closed down just over 0.4% at 16,151. A short time ago in New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial fractionally up 0.01%, up at 33,288. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index down just over 0.1% at 12,705. The S&P 500 in Chicago down 0.2% at 4,183. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 24.2 cents, €1 15.2 cents, and 23 South African rand 83.6 cents. In commodities, gold is down almost 0.1% at $1,967 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up 1 9/10% at $77.34.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
If you have a news story for Manx Radio to investigate and report, email newsroom@manxradio.com or call 682 631 any time of day or night.
Faster by good evening. The Royal College of Nursing members employed by Manx Care are to be balloted over whether they be prepared to breach their employment contracts and take strike action. The move follows rejection of the most recent pay offer from Manx Care. Here's the Royal College of Nursing's Senior Regional Officer for the Isle of Man, Mary Ann Parkinson.
The latest deal that has been enforced is a 4% pay rise for 21-22. 22-23 was originally 4% with a further 2%. So over the 2 years, it's been a 10% pay rise, which is 5% shorter than what we requested, hence the membership rejecting. It's a postal vote because there's legislation that has to be adhered to, so we've had to do some very due diligence and governance with respect to making sure that the membership data is up to date. We formally wrote to the Chief Exec Theresa Cope today to advise her that the ballot starts on the 1st till the 21st. It is a postal vote, so people will get the vote through the post and they have to return it back over here to the UK no later than the 21st. Anything that's received after that that will not be counted. We are expecting a good turnout, so we're using the logo, cast your vote, don't delay, post, don't delay, because we're aware of the practice week, we're aware of TT, we're aware of the bank holidays, so, we really do need people to be mindful that it is a postal vote, because that's the legal requirement. We're hoping to let the Manx Kerr know the outcome of that vote by Friday, the 23rd of June. They're disappointed and very despondent. Recruitment, retention is still as bad as what it was. Agency staff who were coming over have decided they've had enough and leaving, so the shifts are very, very depleted. People are working extra up and above, but they've just got no more emotional resilience. They have had enough, and like they say, we're in dispute with Manx Kerr, but we do have real issues with the Treasury and the allocation of the budget. So we are asking for meetings with the MHK, Treasury and the Health Minister, hopefully to sort that out.
Manx Radio Sport.
Sports editor Rob Pritchard.
Faster Mike, good evening. Starting with boxing, and the Isle of Man's boxers put in some impressive displays in an entertaining 4-4 series draw against a Merseyside and Cheshire select team at the weekend. The Island fighters were involved across 10 bouts at the Adelphi Hotel in Liverpool on Saturday, ranging from skills bouts up to senior contests. Among the highlights, Manxman TJ Fair won by technical knockout up against Jack Cullen, whilst Michael Osborne secured a first-round TKO up against James Morn. Elsewhere, there were points wins for Harley Sawinski and Tom Murray. There was double victory in the skills bounce too, with both Amy Hayward and Josh Duggan picking up wins. Meanwhile, Drew Sawinski, Leo Creer, John Horn and Joe Page, despite some valiant displays, were pipped on points in their respective contests. Jay Burden's senior women's bout was called off after her opponent, Keelan Redfern, was forced to withdraw through injury. In cycling, a day after announcing his retirement at the end of the season, Mark Cavendish returned to Giro d'Italia action on a brutal and mountainous 16th stage. The Manx missile wasn't expecting to challenge at the front, and Astana Kazakhstan's Vadim Pronsky secured the team's highest finish in 20th place. Elsewhere, fellow Manx cyclist Lizzie Holden was involved in the first stage of the Thüringen Ladies Tour in Germany today. Holden and her UAE Team ADQ squad finished 8th overall. In football, Governors Athletic have been crowned champions of the 2022-23 Isle of Man Walking Football League. The squad secured the silverware after a 2-0 win over Corinthians last night. They also achieved the feat with an undefeated record during the campaign of 6 wins and 2 draws from their 8 fixtures. And finally, the Special Olympics Isle of Man team will compete in a prestigious event being held in Europe next month. 18 athletes will represent the Manx flag at the 2023 World Summer Games, taking place in Berlin, Germany from the 17th to the 25th of June, and they'll be involved across 7 different sports.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Next inbound on Ronaldsway, the 10 to 8 Loganair from London City, the 5 to 8 returning patient transfer Loganair from Liverpool, and the 8:15 EasyJet from Gatwick. They're all showing on time. Outbound, next it's Loganair's Liverpool at 6 o'clock on time. The 8:45 EasyJet back to London Gatwick on time. On the roads, Groudle Road's closed in Oncombe between Church Road and Fairway Close, doing some gas work. And in Groudle itself, temporary lights on King Edward Road between Groudle and the Liverpool Arms for drainage work. In Peel, temporary closures around East Quay, roll on. And in Port Erin, delays at that 4-way traffic signal at the Ballafesson Road for that new pedestrian crossing. Temporary lights near the football club in Glen Road, Laxey, and temporary lights on the Sulby Strait for the TT resurfacing. Also on the TT course at Lezayre between Glenduff and Glen Alden, they're doing some work on the pavements. And in Derby, the Ballymena Road's got phase closures for water main replacement.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre. Spread your payments interest-free. Get more with
Quayside. The conclusion from the Care Quality Commission is there aren't enough staff across Manx Care Services always to ensure safe care and manage patients effectively. The CQC published its final reports following a number of inspections across several services. Director of Nursing from Manx Care, Paul Moore, says staff already in post are a credit to the Isle of Man.
This is an incredibly positive outcome for Manx Care. And you know what? That's a tribute to the frontline staff who do all this incredible work for us in their total commitment to patient care. I'm very pleased that the CQC have been able to acknowledge that. But you're right, the theme that kind of links a lot of things in this paper is shortages of staff. And as you know, we've been working on this very, very hard over the last year or so and making some very good progress. particularly on registered nurses. So we've been working to do two things. Number one is to stabilise the gaps in rotas by using international recruitment, and that has the effect of reducing the amount of high-cost agency that we have to rely on. So that's a cheaper, more effective, much more stable way of plugging up the gaps in the workforce. And in addition to that, we are increasing the domestic production of trainees. In 2023, we're doubling the number of training places available. And we've doubled the bursary to try and make it much more attractive to people who might be interested in taking up this as a career. We can do that for the adult and the mental health branches. Now, that won't benefit us until 2026, but when that comes in, that will help to produce a pipeline that will allow us to manage the numbers of people that turn over from retirements, for example. So we're putting ourselves on the front foot and trying to get ahead of the curve on staffing. We do still have some big challenges, though, particularly in social care and allied health professionals and in medical care, that we continue to work on trying to put substantive appointments in place.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
A Manx TV production company has been shortlisted for a prestigious award. Greenlight Television has been nominated in the Best Sports or Live Event Coverage by Broadcast Digital Awards 2023 for Greenlight's live production of last year's TT. Here's the director of Greenlight, Dave Bynan.
We're absolutely delighted, as I'm sure you can imagine. It's a really nice boost as well, just coming on the cusp of this year's event, which we're all busy preparing for. Of course, last year being the first time it had ever been covered live for television or for moving pictures, it was difficult just to imagine when bikes would arrive at which point. You obviously forecast that, but it's a large event to cover and a big geographical area to cover it in, and then you add on top of that the speed of the bikes, and it does make it a challenge, but we had a fantastic team working on it, and we're delighted that most of the same team are back for this year. Yeah, definitely. You're always learning, aren't you? Whatever you're doing, and it was the first time. There are certain things that we've tweaked for this year. We've certainly put a little bit more into the engineering side of things, just to ensure we're enhancing what we did last year. And yes, definitely an evolution.
Now, in terms of the TT 2023, what is the coverage that you've got lined up this year? Is it similar to last year?
Yeah, very similar. So we're covering all of the practice, qualifying and race sessions. Every minute will be live on TT+. We've got pretty much the same presenting team. We've got a new addition with Grace Webb, who worked on the Manx Grand Prix for us, and we're also delighted to just announce Ian Hutchinson's going to be working with us on it.
That's it for Update Tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Christian Jones, producer Rhiann Evans. On the way, the news at 6 o'clock. After that, Howie Kane's in the green room. Grace's sits at 6:30 with Chris Kinley. The Folk Show with John Barker at 9, and Dave Moore, Big Dave, back tonight after hours at 10 o'clock.
WINT